DTI has like this furry headband. I'm not judging or anything. Isaac, while we're waiting, tell the viewers about your $70 pen.
What mercy.
Why do I choose first person? Okay, I'm cool. Okay, I gotta leave.
Yeah, boy.
What? Can you please take it off? This is for Riley. This is for my channel, not Fusion Tech purposes. Yes, Isaac, I know I signed it, but that doesn't mean you can broadcast everything. Can you please take this off of the broadcast? Because I don't want to broadcast it. I just want it to be on my channel. Please, Isaac. No! I hate this. I chose hard because, yeah. I've finished easy like about 3 times already. And I got bored of easy, so yeah. I might get Zaxby's. That's probably dinner tonight. For you guys. What? This is a promotion for a doll show. Alright, y'all, I'm about to rage. But if y'all want me to play Barry's Prison Run and finish it, that's what we'll do. Finish Barry Prison's Run, y'all vote in the chat. Finish Barry's Prison Run, or go back to a different game you're playing. But I will personally finish this if y'all vote me to. Alright, we're just now leaving DTI on the live, from what I've seen on my phone. So, I had to remove the late Isaac, can you do that? Yeah, I know. What? I'm in hard. I'm not fast enough to jump. So I was sitting in science class, right? The teacher, I'm not going to say her name here, but the teacher had handed us this packet, right? Not necessarily a packet, but this sheet, and we had to walk around the classroom doing this station, and I was like, what? I made it! What? Who? Who? Chloe, I cannot call you. Bye. No, my Mac's slow, y'all. My Mac is low on battery. I hate you, Barry! have to camp the button. He's camping the button, legit. No! He legit camping the button. Is it good? There we go. No! Stop camping the button. Hi, Chloe. I see you on the live. Get your big back away from me. I'm not playing with you, Larry. Get your big back away from me. Legit, you so fat. Chloe! I did it. Where did I put the shovel? Oh my goodness, it's all the way on the other side. Okay, we got the shovel now, so now we can dig. Oh, we're done now. Okay, I'm so happy I did that. Okay. Getting backpack. Wait, how do I do this? but there's bear everywhere. You need to go back there, press that button. Go back up. Don't let him kill us. Oh my goodness! Okay, I gotta press this button. This retarded version of battery. So can I? Oh, I can't go. Okay, now I I'm a Okay. Can't make it straight for you. That's not fair. Oh my goodness, I hate him. Jumps right there. No, I cannot jump right there. I need to climb. Change. Till I get to the other side. Oi, oi, ah! Oh. Okay. Oh my goodness. Easy mode, I haven't done easy. What do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, we're cooking. And then we burnt the bacon. I was cooking and I burned the bacon. Bro, okay, we're gonna leave Barry's Prison Run. I don't really want to play that anymore. I guess I'll end the live because my computer's low.
Fried chicken and wontons and teriyaki glaze and an egg roll. Some people think the Zaxby's Sensation salad is too delicious to be a salad. Yep, that's why we call it a salad. The Zaxby's Sensation salad. Zaxby's.
Bret Baier joins us now. He's set to interview the president on Super Bowl Sunday. It's going to air at 3 o'clock, the rest of the interview, because Trump will go long. We'll be on special report on Monday. Bret is also featured in a Super Bowl commercial. Bret, welcome back.
Hey, Brian.
A lot going on Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, the backdrop is Kansas City and Philadelphia. I think the real story is Bret Baier.
It's going to be good. We're going to tape that in Mar-a-Lago Saturday afternoon, and he's obviously going to the Super Bowl. I think it's the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl, which will be in and of itself kind of a moment. But, yeah, I mean, I'm getting questions ready, and a portion of it, roughly 8 to 10 minutes will air on the pregame show, probably around 3:30 or 3:40, and then the rest, and I'm assuming we'll have another 30, 40 minutes, will air on special report on Monday. So potentially a lot of news coming out of that interview.
I know the President of the United States, nonstop. Yesterday was Let's Keep Women in Women's Sports Day. There was also Pam Bondi has the job as Attorney General for about an hour and decides to stop all funding towards sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. That's impactful. But the big story is Elon Musk. And he's able to go through the Treasury, he's able to go through human resources, look at how the size of the federal funds, lace together, put them all on an email, 2.3 million, offer them buyouts. And Democrats are going crazy. Here's Elon talking about Doge's impact already. Cut one.
Although it is a humorous name, ironically, I think Doge will have a very serious, very serious and significant impact on government waste and fraud and abuse, which is really astonishing.
So, and he's talking about shutting down USAID. That was not his decision. It was Trump's decision. And he says it's a den of vipers. He's also told everybody, you can leave in 6 months. I'll give you 6 months pay to leave. And even in the CIA, everybody can leave if they want. And a package, an exit plan will be offered to you. Why do you think Democrats are losing their mind on this?
Well, first of all, it's out of the ordinary. We've never seen an outside the government entity that is digging into government, and Congress feels like it's their oversight role. They feel like, he's a wolf in the chicken house, and he is. Listen, it's a pretty dangerous thing to be defending all of this waste, fraud, and abuse that they're putting out every day. It's not the reports of where the money is going. It's actually where the money is wired, where the checks are actually going. And sometimes that's a big difference. We are always one election away from solving the big things and trying to cut out waste, fraud, and abuse. How many times do we hear politicians saying, I really want to go after waste, fraud, and abuse? This is going after it. Now, how it's happening, is he empowered? Does he have clearance? What about the guys? Are they going down classified things? They say there's a dichotomy there. There's a split, and the right people are doing the right things. Democrats are losing their minds over it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They tried to subpoena him yesterday and never got out of committee. And last night, I guess they had an all-nighter petitioning Doge. But what they're actually protesting is flat out bizarre. Also, cutting down the size of government. It's necessary. I mean, it's very simple. Even I could figure it out. If your number one expenditure is the interest on the debt that you accrued, and every year now we're over $1 trillion over budget every year. Of course you have to cut. You can't grow yourself out of anything like this. And he says the real savings is going to be when he gets into Medicare and Medicaid, and he's doing that now, not to cut benefits, but the dead people and the fraud. Brett, how I just don't understand. If you were originally going to get behind Doge, if you're Jared Moskowitz and Ro Khanna, why would you leave now?
Pressure from your party. I mean, they're trying to grasp onto something to message, and they think this could be it. I just think it's a dangerous thing politically, because I think there's a hunger to get rid of the silliness of government. You know, I mean, we're not even talking about the Pentagon. When they go into the Pentagon really deep, there will be, $40,000 hammers. There will be all that stuff. It's in there, and those budgets are crazy. And so that'll happen too. But the flip side is you have to find the money. If you want to extend the Trump tax cuts, it's without pay-fors. It's about $4 to $5 trillion on the national debt. And, if you want to increase the defense spending for shipbuilding, you're going to have to find that money. And that's, the process they're going through right now.
Okay, I just want to give people at home an idea that Democrats are protesting. Gender diverse support in Bangladesh, 1 million, 7.4 million Syrian democratic political processes. There is none. And by the way, the guy in charge is now a former Al-Qaeda guy. He's an alumnus. 1.9 million for Guatemalan transgender support, Honduran LGBT group, 1.8, 1.5 for Serbian gay group, 70,000 DEI musical in Ireland, Caribbean LGBT group. So this is what they're putting forward. Now, if there was a group that was pro-life in El Salvador, I also don't think we should be funding that. And Republicans should point that out. We're going to find all this stuff.
Eventually that adds up to real money. You find enough of those, it's going to add up to a significant chunk of change. And, all of these folks are saying you're going to kill aid, and China and Russia is going to come in and take the position of the U.S. and change our dynamic around the world. It's not to say that all the U.S. foreign aid is going away. It's just going under Marco Rubio, and they're doing a scrub of what is in the U.S. national interest, what is beneficial and what is not. And that takes time to go through, but it would fall under Rubio under the current plan.
So you always hear stuff, and you do it every day. You're in Washington, deep state, deep state, deep state. Well, we're about to dig in to find out who's financing it and if there is one. So Michael Schellenberger, by the way, I was at the University of Austin, Texas, where he's a professor this year and a founder. He said this to Jesse last night, just to remind everybody how this all was functioning with U.S. aid and the CIA. Cut 14.
You might forget that, the House of Representatives impeached President Trump in December of 2019. Many people may not remember that it was a CIA analyst who was left over from the Obama White House who wrote the memo that led to the impeachment. It was all based on hearsay. The person had not actually been in the room with Trump. This memo that he wrote relied heavily on a report done by an organization funded by USAID. In fact, its initial founding funding, now it's tens of millions of dollars, had gone into this group called the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. But it was basically created as an extension of the State Department and then of USAID. And as you know, Jesse, this is very serious to be involved in an effort to do regime change at home.
That they're playing a role. And USAID evidently stiff-armed Senator Joni Ernst last year when she wanted to find out what they're paying for. They said you have no right to ask.
Yeah. So Rubio talked about this with Rich Edson in that interview in San Salvador, where he said, we tried to engage with USAID, and they said, we don't fall under you. We are an independent agency. And in reality, it was created in an executive order by John F. Kennedy. Congress stepped in and shored it up in the 1980s, but it falls under the State Department. And they essentially were saying, we don't answer to you. So for all the deep state people, there's a lot of evidence that the CIA and other organizations use some of that money in different places around the world to impact our intelligence and operations tangentially through some of that aid.
So we have cost cutting and all those federal governments who were told they could leave. The FBI, too. So with the FBI, there was some clarification yesterday that said if you were involved in the case and the indictments of President Trump, basically resign. And they clarified that. So there's going to be people let go before Kash Patel possibly has the job. But if you were involved in the case and just following your instructions from a superior officer, you're not going to be fired. Are you hearing the same thing?
I am, and that's a good clarification because, it's a hierarchy. You answer to your leadership, and if you are on an investigation that dealt with January 6th or the fallout around the election investigation, you're doing that under orders. And so I don't know how it's going to break down, but they did, I think, walk that back as far as that they're going to be leaving.
All right.
Thousands of people.
So Brett, the Super Bowl ad looks really good. It looks for you and Sean are in it. Was it fun?
It was fun. It's amazing, those ads. They shoot it 700 different ways. And there's a blooper thing on Ad Week where we both forgot lines. There's only 15 seconds of stuff. And we were like, wait, do I start? It was good. We had a good time with it, and it's pretty fun.
So you've had.
Tough for me. It was tough for me to wear an Eagles jersey as a Commanders fan.
I know you're a huge Redskins fan. But Brett, now let's talk about, you don't have to give away your questions, but do you have a specific approach to this interview? I mean, by Sunday, sometimes what he says on Saturday is old news. So how do you approaching this?
Well, that's why we're going to do it as late as we can on Saturday, because just maybe he won't make news between 6 p.m. and the next morning when he leaves for New Orleans. But it's not a guarantee. I think. Listen, it's going to be a mix. It's a Super Bowl interview. It plays to a much bigger audience. But there will be a lot of news that deals with the news of the day. The special report part, it'll get more weedy about his plans and much more to a special report audience.
Right, and you have Prime Minister Netanyahu came on this week, and it was one of the few times. I always think Netanyahu is 2 steps ahead of all of us. Whatever he thinks happening, he knows the American media. I feel like Trump got ahead of him in a lot of the things he was saying in the meetings. Everything from saying out of the nuclear deal. We're going to pull out of the Human Rights Council and the UN. We're going to pull out of UNRWA right away. We're not pushing for a 2-state solution. We are going to have all maximum pressure on Iran. I almost felt like if Netanyahu's jaw could drop at the end when he said, we'll make Gaza an international zone and maybe America will take it. I even thought that caught Netanyahu by surprise. What does your reporting say? Did he catch him by surprise with that?
I think so. There was some talk about it, and I'm told behind closed doors. What he did is change the paradigm. The 2-state solution, you start not talking about that. You start talking about this crazy idea that the U.S. is going to control Gaza, and does it include U.S. troops and all this stuff. That's no longer 2-state solution. It is putting the onus on Middle East partners like Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia. If you don't like this idea, figure out what do you guys have. And I think that Netanyahu, with that framework, actually is extremely happy, especially after the maximum pressure executive order on Iran. I mean, he couldn't have come out of that meeting any happier listening to him in the end game. I think that it was Donald Trump negotiating, and putting things out there. Today he clarified it wouldn't include U.S. troops. How you get from point A to point B is, another question. But it does put the onus on the Middle East partners to say, what are we going to do?
It's interesting times. Brett, good luck Saturday. It'll be great. And I hope you never have to wear an Eagles jersey again, but you'll do anything for the company. You'll do anything for Fox. That's what I walk away with.
True. It's true. Loyal.
Go get him. Brett Baer, thanks.
Let's bring in Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary, to dig more into this and other issues. Carolyn, it's great to see you. It's good to have our own private briefing today.
It's great to see you, too. Thanks for having me, guys.
So the Democrats are really screaming from the rooftops about Doge, all centered around Elon Musk and USAID. Here's just a little bit of what they've been doing in the past few days.
First and foremost, Elon Musk.
This is a dictatorship in the making. We're not going to have apartheid in America anymore.
So here's the interesting thing. A Reuters Ipsos poll that was done right after the USAID news broke found that 56% of people would like to see all foreign assistance programs suspended, which is leading a lot of people to say that the Democrats have picked a very weird hill to die on.
That's because there's no other hill to die on, because President Trump continues to deliver on the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail, and going through the federal government line by line and making this government more efficient is one of those priorities and one of those promises that President Trump made. And as you just cited, John, 56% of Americans support freezing foreign aid. And I read a fascinating article in the Washington Post today. They interviewed voters in Pennsylvania, and all of them said that they support President Trump and Elon Musk's efforts to make this government more efficient. What President Trump and Elon Musk and this entire administration is trying to do is make our bloated bureaucracy here in Washington run like a profitable business. And every agency has been tasked with going line by line and ensuring that the American taxpayers' money is aligned with the American people's interests. It's a common sense solution to fixing a decades-old problem of bloated bureaucracy, waste, fraud, and abuse. And the vast majority of Americans support it. So the Democrats can hoot and holler all they want. This White House will stay committed to delivering on President Trump's priorities and being good stewards of the hardworking American people's tax dollars.
All right, Caroline, again, great to have you on the program. Sandra here. So as far as President Trump's federal buyout offer, we know that expires at midnight tonight. The latest we've heard is that 40,000 staff have agreed to leave. Before I get to my question, is that still about the number right now, 40,000?
Yes. Last I checked with the Office of Personnel Management, it was more than 40,000 and counting. And I would add that we encourage federal workers who don't feel like showing up to the office to accept this buyout program. It's a very generous offer from President Trump and this administration.
I wonder if that's about the number where the president thought he would be right now, or perhaps that might be bigger. Reportedly, and we'll ask you to confirm if this is the case, President Trump is planning mass layoffs if there are not more who agree to those buyouts. Is that the case?
I haven't heard the president discuss that directly, so I can't confirm that. But like I said, we do know that more than 40,000 and counting federal workers have agreed to this buyout program. And they are looking forward, I guess, to having their 8-month paid vacation. The president made a commitment that he was going to encourage the federal workforce to return to the office. We know only 6% of federal workers are working in the office right now. That's unacceptable, and that's why the buyout program was offered.
I want to ask about the president's announcement on Gaza the other day, which seemed to take staff members by surprise. It's something that he had talked about, but they didn't know he was going to make an announcement. A few people I've talked to who worked there at the White House, when they heard that, they said, wait, what? I mean, it's an idea. Some people think that he's laying down the gauntlet to our allies to say, well, if you don't like this idea, have you got a better idea? But the question I have is, he went through the campaign saying that he wanted to get the United States out of its involvement in foreign entanglements. This would seem to be exactly the opposite of that.
I don't think so, John. The president has made it clear that he will not be sending boots on the ground at Gaza. He is not committed to that. He also has made it clear that American taxpayers will not be funding this effort. The president is trying to strike a deal to ensure that Gaza can actually be a habitable place for human beings who want to live in peace with real economic development. And President Trump is an outside of the box thinker. That's again why the American people elected him, because he has a different perspective to the foreign policy challenges that have been plaguing our world for many, many years. And so this is a great idea, and our partners in the region have begun to discuss it with this administration. We have the King of Bahrain coming to the White House next week, and the president has spoken to many of our partners and allies in the Middle East about this opportunity in Gaza.
Okay, in lines of all the spending cuts, there's a lot of concern, and Democrats are penning letters to the president trying to get clarity on where he stands with the Department of Education. Is he planning to completely dismantle this? What right now is his thinking on that?
Sure. Well, first, let me say the president is wholeheartedly committed to spending cuts and, of course, making the government more efficient. That's part of what DOGE is already hitting the ground running to do. When it comes to the Department of Education, the president and his policy team continue to look at options and how to reduce the size of the Department of Education, if not abolish it completely. You heard the president say, half jokingly but also serious, he wants Linda McMahon, who will lead that agency, to put herself out of a job because he wants to return the power over our education system back to the states. In fact, I actually have a statistic in front of me. 70% of 8th graders are at a below proficient level in math and reading. 70%. And that's despite spending hundreds of billions of dollars on education every single year. The current system located in Washington, D.C. is not working. And the president is committed to ensuring that states and parents have a greater say in our children's education system.
Yeah, I mean, the state of education in America, for the most part, is scandalous. There's no doubt about that. I wanted to ask you about the executive order that the president signed yesterday in what was a brilliant moment of stagecraft at the White House, surrounded by all those young female athletes, as the president codified in an executive order the fact that transgender athletes have to stay out of women's sports. But in order to really codify that, that's going to take an act of Congress. Is the president moving down that direction?
Well, we expect Congress to act on this, and if Congress puts a bill on this topic before President Trump's desk that makes sense and is good law, then the president is committed to signing legislation that supports the executive action he has already taken. And I will just say it was a glorious moment at the White House yesterday afternoon to see these female athletes who have worked so hard and have spoken up so courageously about the injustices that they have faced on the sports field. And as a former college softball player myself, it was incredibly special to see the president make the dreams of millions of female athletes across the country true. And we had a big win following President Trump's executive order. Within hours, the NCAA announced that they will be following with the president's federal policy. And by the way, we expect the Olympic Committee to do the same. 2028, the Olympics will be returning to the United States of America, and how wonderful it will be for women across the world to see the U.S. lead on this incredibly important and common sense issue.
Caroline, I want to finish by asking you about the number of deportations we've seen so far. Perhaps this is the most public action for the American people that they've seen under this new presidency. Is the president happy, content with the number of deportations we've seen so far? There's reports that those numbers have not reached the heights he was hoping.
No, the president is very pleased with the efforts by his team. Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, Secretary Kristi Noem, who has been traversing the country, talking with Border Patrol agents and ICE agents who are been tasked with this very important responsibility, the largest mass deportation operation in history. But as I've said before, we will not get complacent. And the president has made this very bold promise to the American people, and he expects everybody across DHS and here at the White House to continue to work hard every day to deport illegal criminals from American communities. And yesterday, I know that Mr. Homan was in Colorado. They deported more than 100 Tren de Aragua members. That's a huge win for the American people, for law-abiding citizens of this country who have been put last because of the previous administration's immigration policies and are being put first again because of the Trump administration's immigration policies.
Carolyn, thank you for coming on and spending time with us today. And it almost feels like I'm back in the front row in the briefing room.
You should come join us, John, anytime.
Well, I appreciated our times that we spent together chatting in the lower press office some years ago.
All right. Caroline, thank you so much. Come back soon.
Thanks, guys.
In a world filled with nasal congestion, one hero rises. Afrin No Drip. Experience ridiculously powerful nasal congestion relief in seconds. No drips, no mess, just unblocked breathing. Whether it's allergies or a cold, Afrin is your go-to solution for nasal congestion. Afrin, the wow is real.
Use as directed.
President Trump has held multiple news conferences, gaggled on Air Force One multiple times, and sat down for a two-part interview on Fox News, which aired last week. As Politico summed it up best, Trump is everywhere again. And that's because President Trump has a great story to tell about the legendary American revival that is well underway. And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets. It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. To do this, I am excited to announce the following changes will be made to this historic James S. Brady briefing room, where Mr. Brady's legacy will endure. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room.
Caroline Leavitt making her debut, but T is silent. Trump's White House press secretary and warning reporters she ain't no binder.
We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
Sandra, in the green room, you were telling me that this girl did a terrible job.
No, she did a fantastic job. We carried this live during America Reports, and she came in there prepared. You can, I don't think you can argue that. She took questions. She took questions from the front of the room. She took questions from the back of the room. She laid out a couple changes that could be interesting. In fact, she said one of the seats that has historically been a seat for a White House staff member is now going to be a new media seat. She wants more representation from podcasts and social media influencers and all these other areas where people in modern days get their news, so that it's not just the legacy media from whom she also took questions in that room. She did a great job. Great job.
Yes. She's still not a, lesbian woman of color, but I'm okay with it, Jessica, because she has a diversity of opinion. You and I probably would agree that you were listening to a person that had direct access to the president, as opposed to KJP. Is that how you say it? From
That's
before?
fine. I don't. Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP.
Yeah.
If you're abbreviating.
So it's nice to see that. You can tell that she talks to the guy.
for better or for worse, this is a very outwardly transparent administration in that way. And yeah, she definitely talked to him. I think it was important for her to not have notes for today, to send the signal like, I'm going to do my homework, even though Kayleigh, who I think did a very good job in the first Trump administration, did have a big binder, and I think she was effective that way. I agree with you. I like the new media seat. She was, a little scrappy with some of the reporters getting into it. One who was saying very specific things he was asking about. She's like, I need some specifics. And he's like, I'm saying the specifics. But I think all in all, she would be thrilled with this as a first day.
That was thorough.
Judge, it's interesting because her only competition is Trump. Like, she's got a president. Her boss is almost as accessible, if not more accessible than her.
And it's interesting. That's my point. That this transparent, transformative press conference today was preceded by a nonstop daily serial pressers by the president since he put his left hand on the Bible. I mean, how many times a day have we seen President Trump? And there's no question that she and President Trump are close. They travel together. They're together. I mean, they have been together for years. I mean, she's very familiar with the family and with the president. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with the idea of the podcasters and social media, the content creators. And I think that this administration is so far ahead of the other administration in terms of its forward thinking. And how it capitalizes on everything, whether it's, the podcasters and social media and the legacy media not being the only media allowed to come into these things. And, like even the president with the dump truck and McDonald's. I mean, they just see and they capitalize on everything, and it's transparent. And I think she was young, competent, confident,
very
incredible,
plucky.
And by the way, they're going to restore press passes to 440 journalists who had their passes revoked wrongly by the Biden administration, including one guy in particular, Simon Atiba. And I don't think she was plucky at all. I thought she said, this is where I work.
Plucky is a compliment, Judge.
Yeah.
I would like to move on to Jessie. Jessie, yet another female press secretary, which I love. I hate male secretaries.
I have one.
Oh, I know.
His name's Johnny. And by the way things are going, we could get Johnny credentialed for the briefing room.
Yes.
This is a good
That's
thing.
how low the bar's gone.
Oh, jeez.
I wouldn't say that. It's expansive. We've expanded it. She's so young, I feel proud of her. That's how I feel proud of her. Everybody was impressed. It was a great debut. And she led off brilliantly with the drone story.
Yep.
Very smart tactically. And she said, the drones were American government drones. We were doing research on drone technology. And Joe Biden lied to you.
Yep.
He lied to us. Why didn't he just tell us what the truth was about the drones? Why lie, Jessica? I'm talking to you, Jessica.
I'm intentionally not talking to you.
The drone lied about the drones.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's bring in Fox News contributor Katie Pavlis. She joins us now with more on this. 27 years old. She's got a lot of experience. I think she's an old soul. She's run for Congress. She narrowly lost the 1st Congressional District in New Hampshire. She worked at the White House before. She worked at Fox for a time as well. I thought she did a terrific job and no shortage of things to talk about in this first briefing.
Yeah, she worked as a deputy for our colleague and former press secretary Kayleigh McEnany, has a lot of experience with the press, ran from Congress, as you mentioned, and of course was a press secretary for the campaign. So she is well seasoned to take on this new task. She did a great job, covered a ton of topics, and it's great to see that the room was packed full of reporters who have to love this. I mean, if you were a White House press secretary, or rather correspondent under the Biden administration, it was a bit of a slog every day trying to get information about what the president was doing, answers to questions about what the federal government was implementing, and answers to the American people. But this time around, it was interesting to listen to the questions that were asked. I heard a lot of substantive questions. Some of them maybe were, tough questions, but I didn't hear a lot of questions about character. And that's a difference from the first term and this term with the press corps, is they're seemingly, at least in the first day, are taking upon themselves to do their jobs, which is to serve the American people and get them information rather than serving themselves. So we'll see how long that lasts, but lots of substantive questions.
Yes, it's early days yet.
That's a great point.
The first day.
And, she was here in December, shortly after she got the job, and she promised transparency, and she promised, that there would be, sort of something different happening in that briefing room. And we obviously just learned a little bit more about the details of that. Reading directly from her verbate there in the room. She said, my team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. Talking about these two new seats, starting today, the seat in the front of the room, which she said is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. And Katie, I think this is really interesting because she's acknowledging that Americans get their news from so many other sources than the traditional mainstream media. They get it from podcasts, they get it from influencers on various social media outlets. So they're going to give those folks an opportunity to get a question in the briefing room.
Well, and Sandra, not only do Americans get their news from a bunch of different sources and different ways, but most importantly, this is about making sure there's a diversity of viewpoints in covering the news inside the White House. For far too long, there's been a liberal lock on the White House press corps and media generally. This allows the American people to really get different perspectives on covering the news of the day, maybe asking different questions that someone who works at a certain outlet or for a certain type of media wouldn't ask, and to serve a whole different audience. You know, when you're doing a press briefing, you can only get to so many different questions, and this gives people the opportunity to ask something on behalf of an audience that maybe isn't represented in that room on a daily basis. The country is a very diverse place. It's a huge country with lots of different opinions and people and issues that affect them at different levels than maybe people in New York or California. So it's an opportunity to bring a diversity of ideology and thought into the briefing room, which I think will serve the American people very well.
Just a quick correction. Carolyn did not work for Fox. I used to see her every day in the lower press office, but unlike Katie and other folks, she did not spend any time here. She did have a rather heated exchange at one point, though, over the migrant crackdown. Let's play this and listen to it.
How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
I mean, you know, it was respectful back and forth. Obviously, she's armed with the facts. The fact that she only seemed to be reading from her notes a couple of times, and one time she was reading an official memorandum, really is quite a departure from the person who used to occupy that podium up until recently.
Yeah, she certainly has done her homework and has a lot of experience working with incoming cabinet officials, with members on Capitol Hill. She's been to Washington, D.C. before and lived here, worked here, understands how the government works. And she's very clear on what the president's agenda is, given how much time she spent with him and how many years she's worked for him. And she's happy to cite the law and say, look, I know that you think there should be exceptions for law breaking, but the law is that if you enter the country illegally and without permission, you indeed have broken it. And so she's answering those questions, and she started the briefing, as we say, off the top in this business with a long list of very violent criminals that they've been deporting. And of course, you have Kristi Noem, the just recently confirmed DHS secretary in New York today on some of those ICE raids.
Yeah, she said that they're going to restore the press passes of 440 individuals whose passes were wrongly revoked by the Biden administration. And to my earlier point, she said we welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. But while she's making those changes, I mean, she also did call on the AP and CNN and MSNBC in that room. So you can say, well done on getting them all in there. Thank you so much, Katie. Yeah.
Boy, you know, talking about everything old is new again, you know, not just Mike Allen and David Sanger, with whom I sat in the Brady briefing room 25 years ago, but the fact that there were so many people there harkens back to the first days of the first Trump administration, when it was literally standing room only, and people were fighting to get in the door. And as Jackie was pointing out, she had to fight to get to her seat in the front row through so many people. I mean, it really is extraordinary to see that back there again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a little technical difficulty here and there is expected. Thanks, Katie.
Great to see you guys.
Thanks, Katie.
But breaking within the last few minutes, a federal judge is now temporarily blocking President Trump's freeze on funding for federal grants and loans. The president issuing the order while programs are being reviewed to make sure they comply with his recent executive actions. The freeze could potentially affect billions of dollars, but White House officials said today it would not impact Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, or any direct payments of assistance. Still, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calls it lawlessness and chaos. Senior White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich starts us off tonight live from the North Lawn. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening, Brett. The decision blocks the funding freeze from going into effect until at least Monday at 5 p.m. There'll be a hearing that morning. The Biden-appointed judge, who's been on the D.C. District Court for about a year, cited the possibility of irreparable harm. The Trump administration has until Thursday afternoon to argue the merits of what it is trying to do. Some of that happened in the briefing today.
If you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's first White House briefing, dominated by questions about the Office of Management and Budget temporarily freezing all federal assistance programs affected by the president's executive orders, beginning at 5 p.m. today.
People are scrambling in all of our states to figure out what it means. I've gotten hundreds of calls from everybody: Head Start, hospitals, firefighters. What does this mean? What does this mean? People are worried. People are in a panic.
The order impacts programs affected by Trump's EOs on ending DEI, unleashing American energy, and reevaluating U.S. interests funding foreign aid and non-governmental programs, plus some others. And there were stated exceptions for programs like Social Security, Medicare, welfare, small businesses, farms, and Pell Grants. But the Medicaid website portal went down after the announcement, spurring confusion about the goals.
There was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization. DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
Leavitt said after the briefing the Medicaid website glitch was unrelated and didn't affect any payments. But a supplemental memo from OMB also went out to clear up confusion. Quote, a pause could be as short as a day. In fact, OMB has worked with agencies and already approved many programs to continue even before the pause has gone into effect.
We are examining everything, taking a look at where money is going, how it is being spent, so that we can be responsible with taxpayer money, something the last administration frankly didn't care about.
Meantime, the administration is offering buyouts to federal workers who don't want to return to work in person. They've got until February 6th, just over a week, to take that offer or leave it. It allows deferred resignation, so you get to keep your pay and benefits and continue to work from home until September 30th. The White House expects between 5 and 10% of federal employees will quit, which would potentially save $100 billion in taxpayer funds annually. Brett.
Jackie, in a week, we've seen a flurry of executive orders. We're getting yet another executive order tonight from President Trump regarding transgender surgeries for children. What does that say?
Yeah, this new EO aims to protect children from what it calls experimental chemical and surgical mutilation. It orders agencies to use every available means to cut off any government participation in institutions that provide these kinds of surgeries. It also states taxpayers will no longer be funding transition surgeries through any federal employees' insurance plans. The Trump White House says this would put the U.S. more in line with European nations that have found the risks of treatment outweigh the benefits, and that 4 out of 5 kids outgrow gender dysphoria. That's the latest. Brett.
Jackie Heinrich, live on the North Lawn. Jackie, thank you. Let's get breaking tonight. President Trump's press secretary says the drones flying over much of the Northeast over the past few weeks do not belong to enemy forces. Caroline Leavitt saying today they were actually authorized by the FAA, raising more questions about previous answers from the previous administration. Correspondent Nate Foy is in Middletown Township, New Jersey tonight with the latest. Good evening, Nate.
Hey, Brett, good evening. So after more than 2 months of frustration and concern during the Biden administration, several residents in New Jersey tell Fox News tonight that they're grateful to President Donald Trump for following through on his promise and explaining, at least to some extent, what was going on with the mysterious drones over New Jersey for the past 2 months. Take a listen to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt earlier today.
The drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Brett, apparent drone sightings impacted a dozen states across the country, launching investigations by local, state, and federal agencies, all while former President Joe Biden and others in his administration would only say the drones posed no public safety threat.
Nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out. We're following them closely. So far, no sense of danger.
Today's news from the White House means the FAA granted temporary flight restrictions because of drones that it authorized in the first place.
The FAA on the call was telling us that they had no record, no understanding as to where these drones were coming from. Now today, yeah, they were authorized by the FAA.
Middletown Mayor Tony Perry tells Fox the White House has promised more information to local leaders soon. He doesn't know exactly when quite yet, but there are still questions as to what kind of research was being done with these drones, although there's also comfort knowing that a foreign adversary was not behind it. Brett?
We'll keep asking the questions. Nate, thanks.
Wait a second. Good stewards of tax dollars? Like, when have we heard that? Well, not since the last Trump administration. Joining us now, Byron York, Washington Examiner, chief political correspondent, Fox News contributor. Byron, what is she, 27 years old? She was unbelievable.
Yep.
I was like, this is
absolutely
fabulous. Fabulous job.
The first thing to say about this is to compare today's briefing to every briefing of the last 4 years of the Biden administration, in which the spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre, either would not or could not engage with reporters on a daily basis. Today was an absolute breath of fresh air, should have been, for a reporter of any stripe.
Right, and also the White House's view on the First Amendment and the need to have a plethora of voices in that briefing room. Watch what she said.
The White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House.
Byron, the truth is the elites, the old regime media, dinosaur media, whatever you want to call them, that's their territory. They don't like the little people going into their territory at all.
Yeah, and this comes after a long period of self-discrediting by a lot of reporters. I remember in the Biden White House press corps, there was a secret. That is, the president was not up to the job, and all the press was either looking the other way or claiming that he was when he was not. And the Biden administration kept very, very close hold on all sorts of information as far as the press was concerned, which was happy to look the other way. So today was just an absolute, complete explosion of openness and sunshine.
I loved it from beginning to end. I joined it late, watching late. I was like, oh, I missed the first. But the great thing about this also is it reveals the press's total hypocrisy on issues like inflation, because Trump's been in there for what, 8 days? Or 8 days? But now they realize eggs are expensive. Watch.
Egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country.
Oh, the little dig at Biden sleeping. Well, I'm sorry, I enjoyed that. Maybe I shouldn't, but I did. They've now gotten actually a light bulb, Byron, on inflation, and now they're worried about spending, how much deporting illegal aliens is going to cost. I've never seen Democrats so worried about spending and inflation.
Well, this was actually a real shot across the bow for the more ideologically oriented members of the media, that if they put a false claim or a questionable claim in a question, it's going to be questioned in turn, and their premise of the question will be questioned. So that's a big deal, and it really suggests that you're just going to have much different interactions between the Trump White House and the press in the briefing room whenever there's a briefing.
Yeah, I think she enjoyed sparring with them as much as Trump does. So I think she loved it. It looks like she just enjoyed every minute of it, which was refreshing as well. Byron, wonderful to see you. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists, gang members, and suspected terrorists from our homeland, and restored common sense to the federal government. I want to take a moment to go through some of these extraordinary actions. On day 1, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration. Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finish construction of his effective border wall. By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration, and this president expects that every nation on this planet will cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, you will be detained and you will be deported. Every day, Americans are safer because of the violent criminals that President Trump's administration is removing from our communities. On January 23rd, ICE New York arrested a Turkish national for entry without inspection who is a known or suspected terrorist. On January 23rd, ICE San Francisco arrested a citizen of Mexico unlawfully present in the United States who has been convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child aged 14 years or younger. ICE St. Paul has arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor. ICE Buffalo arrested a citizen of Ecuador who has been convicted of rape. ICE Boston arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who has a criminal conviction for 2nd-degree murder. This criminal was convicted of murder for beating his pregnant wife to death in front of her 5-year-old son. And ICE St. Paul also arrested a citizen of Mexico who was convicted of possessing pornographic material of a minor on a work computer. These are the heinous individuals that this administration is removing from American communities every single day, and to the brave state and local law enforcement officers, CBP, and ICE agents who are helping in the facilitation of this deportation operation, President Trump has your back, and he is grateful for your hard work. On the economic front, President Trump took immediate action to lower costs for families who are suffering from 4 long years of the Biden administration's destructive and inflationary policies. President Trump ordered the heads of all executive departments and agencies to help deliver emergency price relief to the American people, untangle our economy from Biden's regulatory constraints, and end the reckless war on American energy. President Trump also signed sweeping executive orders to end the weaponization of government and restore common sense to the federal bureaucracy. He directed all federal agencies to terminate illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to help return America to a merit-based society. President Trump also signed an executive order declaring it is now the policy of the federal government that there are only two sexes, male and female. Sanity has been restored. Before I take your questions, I would like to point out to all of you once again have access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. There has never been a president who communicates with the American people and the American press corps as openly and authentically as the 45th and now 47th president of the United States. This past week, President Trump has held multiple news conferences, gaggled on Air Force One multiple times, and sat down for a two-part interview on Fox News, which aired last week. As Politico summed it up best, Trump is everywhere again. And that's because President Trump has a great story to tell about the legendary American revival that is well underway. And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets. It's essential to our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. To do this, I'm excited to announce the following changes will be made to this historic James S. Brady briefing room, where Mr. Brady's legacy will endure. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/newmedia. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart. Mike, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you very much. Caroline, does the president see anything fishy about DeepSeek, either its origins or its cost? And could China's ability to make these models quicker, cheaper, affect our thinking about expanding generation data centers, chip manufacturing?
Sure. The president was asked about DeepSeek last night on Air Force One when he gaggled for, I think, the third or fourth time throughout the weekend with members of the traveling press corps. The president said that he believes that this is a wake-up call to the American AI industry. The last administration sat on their hands and allowed China to rapidly develop this AI program. And so President Trump believes in restoring American AI dominance. And that's why he took very strong executive action this past week to sign executive orders to roll back some of the onerous regulations on the AI industry. And President Trump has also proudly appointed the first AI and crypto czar at this White House, David Sachs, whom I spoke with yesterday, very knowledgeable on this subject, and his team is here working every single day to ensure American AI dominance. As for the national security implications, I spoke with NSC this morning. They are looking into what those may be, and when I have an update, I will share it with you, Mike.
Caroline, you say restore U.S. dominance. Is there a fear that the U.S. either is falling or has fallen behind? And how would the president make sure the U.S. stays ahead?
No, the president is confident that we will restore American dominance in AI.
Yeah, so Caroline, first off, thank you to you and President Trump for actually giving voices to new media outlets that represent millions and millions of Americans. The thing I would add, I've got a two-part question for you. The first is just can you expand upon what steps the White House is going to take to bring more voices, not less, which is what our founder Andrew Breitbart believed in, into this room where they rightfully belong?
Yeah. Absolutely. And as I said in my opening statement, Matt, it is a priority of this White House to honor the First Amendment. And it is a fact that Americans are consuming their news media from various different platforms, especially young people. And as the youngest press secretary in history, thanks to President Trump, I take great pride in opening up this room to new media voices to share the president's message with as many Americans as possible. In doing so, number one, we will ensure that outlets like yours, Axios and Breitbart, which are widely respected and viewed outlets, have an actual seat in this room every day. We also, again, encourage anybody in this country, whether you are a TikTok content creator, a blogger, a podcaster, if you are producing legitimate news content, no matter the medium, you will be allowed to apply for press credentials to this White House. And as I said earlier, our new media website is whitehouse.gov/new media. And so we encourage people to apply. Again, as long as you are creating news-related content of the day and you're a legitimate independent journalist, you're welcome to cover this White House.
And secondly, Caroline, you said you laid out several of the actions that President Trump has taken. Obviously, it's a stark contrast to the previous administration, a breakneck speed from President Trump. Can we expect that pace to continue as the first 100 days moves along here and beyond that?
Absolutely. There's no doubt President Trump has always been the hardest working man in politics. I think that's been proven over the past week. This president has again signed more than 300 executive orders. He's taken historic action. I gaggled aboard Air Force One to mark the first 100 days of this administration, 4 p.m. last Friday, or first 100 hours rather. And this president did more in the first 100 hours than the previous president did in the first 100 days. So President Trump, I think you can all expect for him to continue to work at this breakneck speed, so I hope you're all ready to work very hard. I know that we are. Zeke Miller.
Thanks, Caroline. A question that we've asked your predecessors of both parties in this job. When you're up here in this briefing room speaking to the American public, do you view yourself and your role as speaking on, advocating on behalf of the president or providing the unvarnished truth that is, not to lie, not to obfuscate to the American people?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job. And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people. And that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up truth, Zeke, I would like to point out, while I vowed to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
And Caroline, just on a substantive question, yesterday the White House Office of Management and Budget directed across the board freeze, with some exceptions for individual assistance, we understand, to federal grants. It's caused a lot of confusion around the country among Head Start providers, among providers services to homeless veterans, Medicaid providers, states saying they're having trouble accessing the portal. Could you help us clear up some of the confusion, give some certainty to folks? And also, is that uncertainty, How does that uncertainty service the president's voters?
Well, I think there's only uncertainty in this room amongst the media. There's no uncertainty in this building. So let me provide the certainty and the clarity that all of you need. This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. Individual assistance, that includes, I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. And I want to make that very clear to any Americans who are watching at home who may be a little bit confused about some of the media reporting. This administration, if you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that. However, it is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is something that President Trump campaigned on. That's why he has launched DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, who is working alongside OMB. And that's why OMB sent out this memo last night, because the president signed an executive order directing OMB to do just this. And the reason for this is to ensure that every penny that is going out the door is not conflicting with the executive orders and actions that this president has taken. So what does this pause mean? It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for the Green New scam that has cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies. No more funding for Green New Deal social engineering policies. Again, people who are receiving individual assistance, you will continue to receive that. And President Trump is looking out for you by issuing this pause because he is being good steward of your taxpayer dollars.
Thanks, Caroline.
Sure.
How long is this pause going to last, and how is the Trump administration recommending that organizations that rely on federal funding make payroll, pay their rent in the meantime?
It is a temporary pause, and the Office of Management and Budget is reviewing the federal funding that has been going out the door. Again, not for individual assistance, but for all of these other programs that I mentioned. I also spoke with the incoming director of OMB this morning, and he told me to tell all of you that the line to his office is open for other federal government agencies across the board. And if they feel that programs are necessary and in line with the president's agenda, then the Office of Management and Budget will review those policies. I think this is a very responsible measure. Again, the past 4 years, we've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors. It's a big reason we've had an inflation crisis in this country, and it's incumbent upon this administration to make sure, again, that every penny is being accounted for honestly.
Why impose this pause with so little notice? Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they are about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time?
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know, a regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. You know, just during this pause, DOGE and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOGE and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
And so this doesn't affect Meals on Wheels or Head Start or disaster aid?
Again, it does not affect individual assistance that's going to Americans.
To follow up on Nancy, do you think there will be a list of who is affected and how much money is affected? How will these contractors and organizations know if they are actually having their funding frozen? And then secondly, if you're willing, can you just clarify, is the end goal of this to essentially challenge Congress or to prove that the president can withhold federal funding? In other words, is this an attempt to pick a fight to prove that he can do this?
No, absolutely not. As it says right here in the memo, which I have, and I'd encourage all of you to read it, it says the American people elected President Trump to be the president of the United States. and gave him a mandate to increase the impact of every federal dollar. This memo requires federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements. The American people gave President Trump an overwhelming mandate on November 5th, and he's just trying to ensure that the tax money going out the door in this very bankrupt city actually aligns with the will and the priorities of the American people. So will there be a line?
Yes. Welcome. You look great. You're doing a great job. You talked about transparency, and some of us in this room know how just transparent President Trump has been the last 5 or 6 years. I think you'll do the same. My question is, do you think this latest incident with the president of Colombia is indicative of the global, powerful respect they have for President Trump moving forward, not only to engage in economic diplomacy with these countries, but also world peace?
Absolutely. I'll echo the answer that the president gave on Air Force One last night when he was asked a very similar question by one of your colleagues in the media. This signifies peace through strength is back. And this president will not tolerate illegal immigration into America's interior. And he expects every nation on this planet, again, to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens who illegally entered into our country and broke America's laws. Won't be tolerated. And as you saw, the Colombian government quickly folded and agreed to all of President Trump's demands. Flights are underway once again.
Carolyn. Two questions on deportations, if I may. President Trump had said on the campaign trail that he would deport pro-Hamas students who are here on visas. And on his first day in office, he signed an executive order that said, quote, the U.S. must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the U.S. do not bear hostile attitudes towards its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. So should we take this executive order as Trump saying he would be open to deporting those students who are here on visas but, hold pro-Hamas sympathies?
The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation's immigration laws. So if they are here illegally, then certainly he is open to deporting them. And that's what this administration is hard at work at doing. We receive data from DHS and from ICE every single day. From what we hear on the ground, ICE agents are feeling incredibly empowered right now because they actually have a leader in this building who is supporting them in doing their jobs that they were hired to do, which is to detain, arrest, and deport illegal criminals who have invaded our nation's borders over the past 4 years. That's what the president is committed to seeing. Peter.
Very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump, during the course of the campaign in 2024, said the following about illegal immigration. He said, they're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal?
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table.
Understood. Then let me ask you a separate question about the confusion that still exists across the country right now as it relates to the freeze or the pause as it's described. President Trump, of course, ran one of the key policy items was that he was going to lower prices, lower the cost of everything from groceries, as he often said. But in many of the cases, it would seem that some of these moves could raise prices for real Americans on everything from low-income heating, that program, child care programs. Will nothing that the president's doing here in terms of the freeze in these programs raise prices on ordinary Americans.
What particular actions are you referring to that
I'm
would?
referring to LHEAP right now. That's the low-income heating program, for example. We can talk about, there's no clarity, so I could refer to a lot of them. We don't know what they are specifically. Can you tell us that LHEAP, that LIHEAP is not one of those affected?
So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify.
I just identified.
What I can tell you
just to be
is
clear, since you guys haven't identified, let's do it together just for Americans at home. Medicaid, is that affected?
I gave you a list of examples: Social Security, Medicare, welfare benefits, food stamps that will not be impacted by this federal pause. I can get you the full list after this briefing from the Office of Management and Budget. But I do want to address the cost cutting because that's certainly very important and cutting the cost of living in this country. President Trump has taken historic action over the past week to do that. He actually signed a memorandum to deliver emergency price relief for American families, which took a number of actions. I can walk you through those. He also repealed many onerous Biden administration regulations. We know over the past 4 years, American households has been essentially taxed $55,000 in regulations from the previous administration. President Trump, with the swipe of his pen, rescinded those, which will ultimately put more money back in the pockets of the American people. So deregulation is a big deal. And then when it comes to energy, I mean, the president signed an executive order to declare a national energy emergency here at home, which is going to make America energy dominant. We know that energy is one of the #1 drivers of inflation. And so that's why the president wants to increase our energy supply to bring down costs for Americans. The Trump energy boom is incoming, and Americans can expect that.
Please share that out. Thank you.
Caroline, I think some of the confusion may be here with this pause on federal funding. You've made it clear you're not stopping funds that go directly to individuals, but there certainly are lots of organizations that receive funding and then may pass along a benefit. Meals on Wheels, for one. They provide meals for over 2.2 million seniors. What is the president's message to Americans out there, many of whom supported him and voted for him, who are concerned that this is going to impact them directly, even if, as you said, the funding isn't coming directly to their wallet?
I have now been asked and answered this question 4 times. To individuals at home who receive direct assistance from the federal government, you will not be impacted by this federal freeze. In fact, OMB just sent out a memo to Capitol Hill with Q&A to clarify some of the questions and the answers that all of you are asking me right now. Again, direct assistance will not be impacted. I've been asked and answered about this OMB memo. There's many other topics of the day. Jackie Heimer.
But indirect assistance, Caroline, if it's going to another organization and then trickling down.
Direct assistance that is in the hands of the American people will not be impacted. Again, as I said to Peter, we will continue to provide that list as it comes to fruition. But OMB right now is focused on analyzing the federal government's spending, which is exactly what the American people elected President Trump to do.
And one question on immigration, Caroline, on immigration. Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
You made a point of going with the worst first. They all have a criminal record?
And welcome to the briefing. If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal. Yes.
Thank you. On stripping security details for figures like John Bolton, Pompeo, Brian Hook, Senator Tom Cotton said that he's seen the intelligence and the threat from Iran is real for anyone who played a role in the Soleimani strike. He voiced concern it wouldn't just impact those individuals, but potentially their family, innocent bystanders, friends, anyone who's near them when they're out in public. Is the president open to reconsidering his decision?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday, and he was firm in his decision despite some of the comments that you had referenced. And he's made it very clear that he does not believe American taxpayers should fund security details for individuals who have served in the government for the rest of their lives. And there's nothing stopping these individuals that you mentioned from obtaining private security. That's where the president stands on it. I have no updates on that.
Is there any concern that this decision might jeopardize the administration's ability to hire the best advisors for these kinds of positions in the future?
No, in fact, I've talked to the Presidential Personnel Office, who has told me directly that there is such an influx of resumes for this administration that it's incredibly overwhelming. There is no lack of talent for the Trump administration.
Reagan, Ron, would he take any responsibility if anything happened to these people? Would he feel at all that his decision
was a factor in that?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. I defer you to his
Thanks,
comments.
Caroline.
Reagan, since you're in the back row, I hear you, the back row hasn't gotten much attention in the last 4 years, so I'm happy to answer your question.
And I can project. Does the president intend to permanently cut off funding to NGOs that are bringing illegal foreign nationals to the country, such as Catholic Charities?
I am actually quite certain that the president signed an executive order that did just that, and I can point you to that.
One more, Caroline. President Trump issued an executive order on increased vetting for refugees and visa applications. Part of that order was considering an outright ban for countries that have deficient screening processes. Has the president considered yet which countries might fall into this category? Are countries like Afghanistan or Syria under consideration for a full ban?
Yeah, so the president signed an executive order to streamline the vetting for visa applicants and for illegal immigrants in this country who are coming, of course, from other nations. It also directed the Secretary of State to review the process and make sure that other countries around the world are being completely transparent with our nation and the individuals that they are sending here. And so the Secretary of State has been directed to report back to the president. I haven't seen that report yet. We've only been here for a few days.
One on the freeze in federal funding. Who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And on what happened on Friday night, the administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting on.
So you're confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, those prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed?
We will win in court.
And
yes.
Did he personally direct this, given they worked on the classified documents investigation and the election interference investigation?
This was a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House. So yes. Yes.
Caroline.
Caroline? Sure. Thank you. Congrats on your first day behind the podium.
Thank you.
President Trump ended funding for UNRWA and also designated the Houthis a foreign terrorist organization.
That's right.
Both were decisions that the previous administration had reversed. So here's my question. Will there be an investigation into who gave the previous administration this terrible advice?
Well, that's a very good point. I haven't heard discussions about such an investigation, but it wouldn't be a bad idea considering that the Houthis certainly are terrorists. They have launched attacks on U.S. naval ships across this world, and so I think it was a very wise move by this administration to redesignate them as a terrorist group, because they are, and I think it was a foolish decision by the previous administration to do so. As for an investigation, I'm not sure about that, but it's not a bad idea. Josh.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Can you give us an update on the president's plan for his tariff agenda? He spoke a lot about this yesterday, and there's a couple of dates coming up that he's spoken to. Number one, February 1st, he's alluded to both the potential for tariffs for Canada and Mexico, but also China to take effect on those days. What's he thinking about that?
Yeah.
Should those countries expect that?
Again, he was asked and answered this question this past weekend when he took a lot of questions from the press, and he said that the February 1st date for Canada and Mexico still holds.
What about the China 10% tariff that he also had mused about last Tuesday going into effect on the same day?
Yeah, the president has said that he is very much still considering that for February 1st.
Separately, yesterday he talked also about sectoral tariffs on, for instance, pharmaceuticals as well as semiconductor computer chips. He talked about steel, aluminum, and copper. What's the timeline on those? Is that a similar sort of coming days thing?
Yeah, so when the president talked about that in his speech yesterday, that actually wasn't a new announcement. That was within a presidential memorandum that he signed in one of the first days here in the White House on his America First trade agenda. So there's more details on those tariffs in there. As far as a date, I don't have a specific date to read out to you, but the president is committed to implementing tariffs effectively, just like he did in his first term.
Finally, he also was asked on the plane when he gaggled about the potential for a universal tariff. He was asked maybe about 2.5%. There was a report about that. He said he wanted much bigger than that. Should we understand that these tariffs would add up? You know, in other words, you might have country-specific tariffs like Canada, Mexico, China. You might have sectoral tariffs like on pharmaceuticals, as well as a potential universal tariff on top of that. Do these stack on one or the other, or would one sort of take precedence over another?
All I can point you to is what the president has said on this front. The February 1st date for Canada and Mexico, also the China tariff that he has discussed. He rejected the 2.5% tariff. He said that was a little bit too low. He wants it to be higher. I'll leave it to him to make any decisions on that front. Phil Eichmann.
What the Mexicans and Canadians have done so far, do you have any comment on whether that has met the bar, what he wants to see on fentanyl? Thank you.
I won't get ahead of the president again on advocating to foreign nations on what they should or shouldn't do to get away from these tariffs. The president has made it very clear, again, that he expects every nation around this world to cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. And the president has also put out specific statements in terms of Canada and Mexico when it comes to what he expects in terms of border security. We have seen a historic level of cooperation from Mexico, but again, as far as I'm still tracking, and that was last night talking to the president directly, February 1st is still on the books. Phil.
Thank you, Caroline. Quick programming note and then a question on taxes. In terms of programming, should we expect to see you here every day? How frequently will these press briefings be?
It is a good question, April. So look, the president, as you know, is incredibly accessible. First day here, he wanted all of you in the Oval Office. You got a 60-minute press conference with the leader of the free world while he was simultaneously signing executive orders. I may add that's pretty impressive. I don't think the previous office holder would be able to pull such a thing off. So look, the president is the best spokesperson that this White House has, and I can assure you that you will be hearing from both him and me as much as possible.
And then a question about tax cuts. The president has promised to extend the tax cuts from the previous term. I'm curious, does the president support corresponding spending cuts as some Republicans have called for in Congress? And will the new Treasury Secretary be leading those negotiations with the Hill as Mnuchin did during the first administration?
The president is committed to both tax cuts and spending cuts, and he has a great team negotiating on his behalf, but there's no better negotiator than Donald Trump, and I'm sure he'll be involved in this reconciliation process as it moves forward.
Caroline, in the announcement that you made last night on the Iron Dome, it said the president had directed that the United States will build this Iron Dome.
Yeah.
When you read into the executive order, it seemed short of that. It asked for a series of studies and reports back to him. Can you tell us whether the president has directed this? And if he is this concerned on this issue, why the suspensions that we saw listed by OMB included so many different nuclear programs, non-proliferation programs, programs to blend down nuclear weapons, and so forth?
First of all, when it comes to the Iron Dome, the executive order directed the implementation of an Iron Dome. It also, as you said, kind of directed research and studies to see if or how the United States can go about doing this, particularly the Department of Defense. When it comes to the other question that you asked about those specific programs, again, I would say this is not a ban. This is a temporary pause and a freeze to ensure that all of the money going out from Washington, D.C. is aligned with the president's agenda. And as the Office of Management and Budget has updates on what will be kickstarted once again, I will provide those to you.
Just to clarify for a sec what you were saying before on Medicaid. It wasn't clear to me whether you were saying that no Medicaid would be cut off. Obviously, a lot of this goes to states before it goes to individuals and so forth. So are you guaranteeing here that no individual now on Medicaid would see a cutoff because of the pause?
I'll check back on that and get back to you. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. As you know, in the first week that the president was in office, signed an executive order as it relates to birthright citizenship, trying to eliminate that. Now, 22 state attorney generals have said that this is unconstitutional. A federal judge has just agreed with their argument. What's the administration's argument for doing away with birthright citizenship?
The folks that you mentioned have a right to have that legal opinion, but it is in disagreement with the legal opinion of this administration. This administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, and that is why President Trump signed that executive order. Illegal immigrants who come to this country and have a child are not subject to the laws of this jurisdiction. That's the opinion of this administration. We have already appealed the lawsuit that was filed against this administration, and we are prepared to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to, because President Trump believes that this is a necessary step to secure our nation's borders and protect our homeland.
On foreign policy, if I may, the president's commitment to the NATO Defense Alliance, is it as strong as the prior administration? Is it the same as when he served as president in his first term in office?
As long as NATO pays their fair share, and President Trump has called on NATO allies to increase their defense spending to 5%. You actually saw the head of NATO at Davos last week on Bloomberg television saying that President Trump is right, and if Europe wants to keep itself safe, they should increase their defense spending. I would just add that there was no greater ally to our European allies than President Trump in his first term. The world for all nations in Europe, and of course here at home, was much safer because of President Trump's peace through strength diplomatic approach.
Monica. Thank you, Caroline. And it's great to finally be called on as well in the briefing room. I appreciate that. Of course, we know President Trump just got back from North Carolina and California meeting with victims of natural disasters. There's the 2-year anniversary of the East Palestine, Ohio toxic train derailment. Does the president have any plans to go visit the victims of that toxic spill, or just visit in general?
No plans that I can read out for you here. If that changes, I will certainly keep you posted. What I can tell you is that President Trump still talks about his visit to East Palestine, Ohio. That was one of the turning points, I would say, in the previous election campaign, where Americans were reminded that President Trump is a man of the people, and he, as a candidate, visited that town that was just derailed by the train derailment, no pun intended, and he offered support and hope, just like I saw the president do this past week. It was a purposeful decision by this president on his first domestic trip to go to North Carolina and to California to visit with Americans who were impacted by Hurricane Helene and also by the deadly fires. A red state and a blue state, both of which feel forgotten by the previous administration and the federal government. That is now ended under President Trump. He will continue to put Americans first, whether they're in East Palestine, in Pacific Palisades, or in North Carolina.
Thank you, Caroline. On California, could you please clarify what the military did with the water last night, as referenced in the president's Truth Social post?
The water has been turned back on in California, and this comes just days after President Trump visited Pacific Palisades, and as you all saw, applied tremendous pressure on state and local officials in Pacific Palisades, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, to turn on the water and to direct that water to places in the south and in the middle of the state that have been incredibly dry, which has led to the rapid expansion of these fires.
So could you clarify what the military's role was, where the water came from, and how it got there?
Again, the Army Corps of Engineers has been on the ground in California to respond to the devastation from these wildfires, and I would point out that just days after President Trump visited the devastation from these fires, the water was turned on. That is because of the pressure campaign he put on state and local officials there who clearly lack all common sense. And I will never forget being at that roundtable with the president last week and hearing the frustration in the voices of Pacific Palisades residents who feel as though their government has just gone insane. Before President Trump showed up on the scene, Karen Bass was telling private property owners that they would have to wait 18 months to access their private property. So this administration, the president and his team that's on the ground in California, Rick Grenell, who he has designated to oversee this great crisis, it will continue to put pressure on Karen Bass and state and local officials to allow residents to access their properties. This is a huge part of it. These residents want to take part in their own clearing out of their properties. They should be able to do that. It's the United States of America. What happened to our freedom? Clearly it's gone in California, but not anymore under President Trump. April.
Caroline, welcome to the briefing room.
Thank you.
Several questions. One on the pause. Will minority serving institutions, preferably colleges and universities, have those monies held back temporarily at this moment?
Again, I have not seen the entire list because this memo was just sent out. So I will provide you all with updates as we receive them, okay?
Also, secondly, when it comes to immigration, there is this southern border focus. What happens to those who've overstayed their visas? That is part of the broken immigration system. In 2023, there was a report by the Biden administration, the Homeland Security Department, that said overstays of visas were 3 times more than usual. Will there be a focus on the overstays for visas as well?
If an individual is overstaying their visa, they are therefore an illegal immigrant residing in this country and they are subject to deportation.
And also lastly, as we're dealing with anti-DEI, anti-woke efforts, we understand this administration is thinking about celebrating Black History Month. Have you got any word on that? Anything that you can offer to us?
As far as I know, this White House certainly still intends to celebrate, and we will continue to celebrate American history and the contributions that all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed, have made to our great country, and America is back. Christian Daycock.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office, so what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with Kevin Hassett, who's leading the economic team here at the White House, on how we can address the egg shortage in this country. As for costs, I laid out the plethora of ways that President Trump has addressed saving costs for the American people over the past week. He looks forward to continuing to doing that in the days ahead. Thank you guys.
One more border question.
Are Medicaid portals down in all 50 states?
Investment and technology companies anywhere in the world, one of the most successful investors in the world. And we've just concluded a very productive meeting, and today I'm thrilled to announce that SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum. And he's doing this because he feels very optimistic about our country since the election. And many other people are also coming in with tremendous amounts of money. You probably noticed that a poll was just taken. It's business is literally in 39 years, there's been nothing like it. It's been the biggest increase. Small business owners gave it a 41% jump. It's the biggest jump that we've had in 39 years. And nobody's ever seen anything like it. And it's just, they're very optimistic. This historic investment is a monumental demonstration of confidence in America's future, and it will help ensure that artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, and other industries of tomorrow are built, created, and grown right here in the USA. One of the beautiful things about Masa is he's very much involved with emerging technology, probably knows it maybe better than almost anybody. So it's a great honor, and some of you remember after the 2016 election, also SoftBank committed to invest $50 billion in our country, and they did. And I'm very pleased to say that they kept that promise in every way, shape, and form, and now they're looking to do 100, and I've looked at their books. They do have the possibility of doing more. I'm going to ask them to do a little bit more, but first I'm going to ask him to speak and just to say a few words. Masa, please. Thank you. Thank you, please. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited. I would really like to celebrate the great victory of President Trump. And my confidence level to the economy of the United States has tremendously increased with his victory. So because of that, I'm now excited to commit this $100 billion and 100,000 jobs into the United States. This is double of last time, as President Trump said. Because I say, oh, President Trump is a double down president. I'm going to have to double down, you know, $100 billion and 100,000 jobs. This is, you know, my confidence level, because that has doubled down. So I am truly excited to make this happen. And of course, business is important, technology is important. But one more thing I'm really hoping is that this President Trump would make the world, bring the world into peace again. That's my additional hope. And I think he will actually make it happen. So anyway, I'm excited to go, and we were discussing, and President Trump said, Masa, you know, double down is not enough. Maybe, you know, go for more, right?
That's what I'm going to ask him right now. Would you make it $200 billion instead of he can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
Well, my promise is 100, but, you know, he's now asking to do more. I think, you know, with your leadership,
Microsoft Tech for Social Impact is committed to making world-class cloud technology accessible and affordable so nonprofits can drive even greater impact. Through our technology grants, eligible nonprofits can get Microsoft 365 Business Premium free. That means best-in-class productivity of your favorite Office 365 apps like Excel and Outlook, plus Teams with simple device management and security. Get started at Microsoft.com/nonprofits.
It's not having access to 1 million industrial-grade products that's so amazing. It's the feeling of knowing you'll find the one you need. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
my partnership with you, with your support, I will try to make it happen.
That's good.
All right.
200. He'll make it happen. 200 billion investment.
He is a great negotiator.
He's a brilliant guy and did an unbelievable job, and the people of Japan and all over the world are very proud of him. They have tremendous respect for him. So when he does what he just did, and I would be surprised if it didn't go to 2. When you say you'll try, I know you'll do it.
I will really try. And I need your support, though.
You'll have my support.
All right.
You'll have our country's support.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you, Masa, very much.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to
Great
say hello
event.
to the people of Japan who are all watching?
Well, I'm sure our people in Japan are proud to make the partnership of U.S. and Japan be stronger. And I'm very excited to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. It's amazing. It's a great gentleman, a great leader, and a great investor. So to have that offer made, and we have so many companies coming in now that will be announcing, or that will announce themselves. We don't have to be with them to do it, but they'll be announcing. And as I said, small business optimism took a 41-point jump. 41 points. It went up 41 points. That's unheard of. And that's the biggest they think in recorded history, but they know at least a minimum of 39 years, so that's great. But on behalf of the American people, I want to thank Masa for his faith in what's happening with our country and what's happening with the world. There's a whole light over the entire world. Many people, some reporters, and speaking to them, they said, you know, it actually is true. couple of them are not necessarily friends of mine, but they said it is actually true that there's a light shining over the world. We're trying to help very strongly in getting the hostages back, as you know, with Israel and the Middle East. We're working very much on that. We're trying to get the war stopped, that horrible war that's going on in Ukraine, with Russia, Ukraine. We're going to, we've got a little progress. It's a tough one. It's a nasty one. It's nasty. People are being killed at levels that nobody's ever seen. You know, it's very level fields, and the only thing that stops a bullet is a body, a human body. And the number of soldiers that are being killed on both sides is astronomical. I've never seen anything like that. And rapidly, I get reports every week, and it's not even, you know, it's like just they're going down. Nobody's seen anything like it. It's a very flat surface, a very flat land. That's why it's great farming land. It's the breadbasket for the world, actually. But it's very flat, and there's nothing to stop a bullet but a body. There's no protection, no nothing, and it's what's happening there is far worse than people are reporting for both sides. So we're going to do our best, and we've been doing our best, and we'll see what happens. But since the election, I've been working every day to put the world at ease a little bit, to get rid of the wars. We had no wars when I left office, and now it's the whole world is blowing up. But there's great optimism, and you saw that by SoftBank. Starting on day one, we'll implement a rapid series of bold reforms to restore our nation to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We had it in my term. We had the greatest economy that the world had seen. We were blowing away everybody. Our country was doubling up on China, doubling up on everybody, and everybody knows it. And then we had to slow it down with COVID, unfortunately, at the end. But even then, I gave it back with a substantial increase of the stock market, bigger than it was pre-COVID, so it was pretty amazing. Already preparations are underway to slash massive numbers of job-killing regulations, eliminating 10 old regulations for every new one. You put a new regulation on, you have to get rid of 10, and we'll be able to do it. And that was about the percentage we had. We cut more regulations than any president has ever cut, by far, actually, by approximately 5 times. Some of those regulations, unfortunately, were put back on, but we'll catch up very quickly. We'll catch up with it. One of the things I'd like to ask the Biden administration, as you probably heard, there are 2 events that took place. We're talking about a friendly takeover, a friendly transition, as they like to say. This is a friendly transition, and it is, but there are 2 events that took place that I think are very terrible. One is that if people don't come back to work, come back into the office, they're going to be dismissed. And somebody in the Biden administration gave a 5-year waiver of that, so that for 5 years, people don't have to come back into the office. It involved 49,000 people.
These mushrooms make you feel better. Like a lot better. These mushrooms help you focus while lowering stress, keeping you calm but sharp. They reduce bloat and protect your gut so you can digest better. Plus, they boost your immunity so you can stay healthy and energized. Oh, by the way, they taste good too. Someone should make a coffee out of this stuff. Rise. Feel better.
Are you a stay-at-home mom looking for a job that you can do from the comfort of your home? Well, I have the best job for you. Let's check it out. This business is very simple and anybody can do this. You don't need any special degrees, no certifications, and you can get started today. So this right here, this is a list from Athens, Clarke County in Georgia. It shows the excess amount, it shows if something has been claimed, and it shows the balance that's available. Basically, what we're doing is we're gathering these reports and we're helping people follow these claims. Now, you can do this from anywhere. I just showed you guys that in Georgia. This is a county, Sarasota, in in Florida. They give you information directly on the county site on how to claim, and then you can do this anywhere. This is another county. This is also a county in California. So if you guys are looking for a job where you can do from the comfort of your home, where you're just reaching out to homeowners and helping them file claims where you can get a pretty penny, a nice percentage, then this is going to be for you. Check out these student results so you can see that this is something that you can get started today and make some great money. Don't miss out on this huge opportunity. Let's get started today.
For 5 years, they don't have to go. They just signed this thing. It's ridiculous. So it was like a gift to a union, and we're going to obviously be in court to stop it. The other thing is really terrible. We spent a tremendous amount of money on building the wall. The wall was designed specifically by the Border Patrol because it's very hard to climb. They need to have see-through. They need it to be steel because you can't cut. It's very powerful steel. It's very hard steel. It's a special type of steel, but very, very hard to cut. Inside the steel, as you know, we pour concrete, and that's a grade 10 concrete, which is a very strong concrete, very as though you were building about a 60-story building. It's very powerful concrete. They've made tremendous technology advances in the word concrete. Who would think that? But I know that from the construction industry. Today, what you can do with concrete is incredible. So we have a very strong concrete. And then we have a rebar. We put rebar inside the concrete, and the rebar likewise is very hard to cut. So it's a very expensive process, very expensive wall. And then we put a anti-climb plate on the top. You saw that. And I didn't like the look of it, but then when I watched, we had people testing. We had mountain climbers actually testing, and they were not able to get over the anti-climb plate. So I said, all right, I guess we're going to put it on. That plate on top, which I never loved the look of it, but it works so unbelievably well, you have to do it. So we spent a lot of money on building it, and we have hundreds of miles that we put up. A lot of people don't realize, but we did 571 miles of wall. That's why we had such good records, in addition to the fact that Mexico helped us with their military. They kept people out, and they were actually very good under the past leader. But now we ordered an additional 200 miles of wall. It's very expensive, and now it's about double the price of what it would have been 6 years ago. And the administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it, and if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it, and it'll cost double what it cost years ago, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars, because you're talking about a lot of wall. I built much more than I said I was going to build, but then after it was built, I said, you know, we can do some more because it's sort of like water, people flow through, and that will pretty much really take care of it. And what happened is they just, as you see, they're trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, and that's really, that has nothing to do with a smooth transition. That has to do with people really trying to stop our nation. And all it means really is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more, not even talking about the time. Time would be pretty long, but we'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on building the same wall that we already have. And people have already come back to us that have deals at 5 cents and 4 cents, and one guy at 3 cents on the dollar, and they offered to sell it back to us at more money than it cost us to build substantially. Can you believe it? So they make a deal with the United States to buy it for pennies, and then they call us and they say, do you want to buy it back? We'll sell it back to you for hundreds of dollars a foot. Hundreds of dollars, from pennies to hundreds of dollars a foot. And we can't let this take place. Now we're going to go. I spoke with the Attorney General of Texas. I spoke to the senators of Texas. I spoke to a lot of people, and hopefully they'll be able to stop. We're going to be, having a restraining order. But just think about how ridiculous it is. And this is just people that don't want this country to succeed. And this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. This has to do with common sense. We won on common sense, and this is maybe one of the most egregious examples I've seen. So the people that are buying it or trying to buy it are trying to make a deal with us to sell it back. at hundreds of times more than we paid. And this is all because the Democrats. So I'm asking today Joe Biden to please stop selling the oil. We're going to use that to create a strong barrier, and it worked. That's why our numbers were so good. It really worked, and it worked well. And it's very expensive to do, and I'm asking Joe Biden to stop his people from giving it away. It's something that people can't even believe is happening. So hopefully Joe will be able to stop it. We'll soon unleash American energy, and this will be done at levels not seen before, issuing quick approvals for pipelines, drilling, and other infrastructure. It'll be clean energy, and we'll bring in the price of electricity, and we're going to bring it down fast. We're also going to create clean coal. Clean coal is something that has really taken over. We have coal that will last for over 1,000 years. We have so much coal, and with a process, it becomes clean coal. It's very powerful energy, unlike wind. It's very, very powerful, and we're going to be doing a lot of clean coal for the people of West Virginia and others, Wyoming, so many states. We have great states, and they'll be happy to hear it. But we're going to be very much into clean coal. I don't ever use the word coal. I use the word clean coal. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for American families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. As you know, we're giving tax cuts if they do it here. We brought it down from 44%, 42%. In some cases, it was 39%. We brought it all the way down to 21%. And now we're bringing it down to 15%, but only if they make their product, their car, or whatever they're doing in the United States and the U.S., and people are thrilled. I've had the smartest people on Wall Street call me. They said, "Where'd you get that idea?" And it doesn't seem that complicated, right? But it's nobody. It's like the paperclip. Nobody ever thought of it. One guy thought of it. Everybody looked at it. They said, "Wow, that was a good idea. Why didn't I think of it?" But we're bringing it down 6 more points, and that will put us really at the
So I always kind of say that macro is a little bit of a misnomer. It's actually fairly hard to define exactly what macro investing is. It's been a little bit of an accident of history. So macro can be very macro or very technical and very much in the weeds. What was classically thought of as macro investing, which was betting on the direction of interest rates or currencies or equities, ended up merging with what was classically called the fixed income business, which is very focused on interest rate and bond markets and what this bond's gonna do relative to that bond. And so that's called more of a relative value business. Macro has really kind of become both of these businesses, is how most people think about it. And then even within those, there are many different specialties.
Macro, I think people traditionally think about, are rates gonna go higher or lower? But it's far more nuanced than that.
the best level we've ever had for bringing in business. We've never been down to that level. We'll be among the lowest taxed states, and a lot of businesses are going to come in. Between that and our taxing and tariff policies, we're going to have business like nobody's ever seen in this country before. That's why we're, having a 41-year record in optimism from small businesses and big businesses. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. Any business that invests $1 billion or more in the United States will be eligible for fully expedited permits and approvals, including environmental approvals from the federal government. So when companies come in, if they're going to invest $1 billion or more, there'll be many of them, and they'll go into Detroit, and they'll go into a lot of places where we want them. You saw how well I did with the auto workers. We did unbelievably. You saw how well we did with the Teamsters, and also the non-union were record 98%, 97%. Nobody's ever got numbers like that because we're bringing business back, and they're all coming back. We lost them over years of stupidity, I call it. I call it the years of stupidity, the decades of stupidity. Through the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk has been working very hard with various people, including Vivek. We'll going to eliminate hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud. And I can only tell you, I'll give you a little early report, they're finding things that you wouldn't even believe. So we're looking to save maybe $2 trillion. And it'll have no impact. Actually, it'll make life better, but it'll have no impact on people. It's not like we will never cut Social Security, things like that. It's just waste, fraud, and abuse. And we'll immediately restore the sovereign borders of the United States and stop illegal immigration, which is costing us, I believe, trillions of dollars a year. I think it's a cost that nobody's ever seen anything like it. I don't know how can you be satisfied releasing prisoners into the United States. Think of this. You're releasing prisoners from jails all over the world, not just in South America. From the Congo, I would talk about it all the time. They're a very big sender of people. But from all over the world, they're sending prisoners out of their jails. Some of their jails are empty, and they will be empty soon if this ever continued. I spoke with the president of Mexico, and as you know, I spoke with Justin Trudeau of Canada, and we told them it's not fair, not right. You can't let these people come into our country. And they understand. They're very much on notice. And they're going to have to stop this from happening. They're going to have to stop it. We lose a lot of money to Mexico. We lose a lot of money to Canada, tremendous amount. We're subsidizing Canada. We're subsidizing Mexico. That can't go on. And I get along with the people of Mexico and Canada very well, but we can't let that happen. Why are we supporting and giving other countries hundreds of billions of dollars? It's not fair. It's not right. And the people of Mexico and Canada fully understand that. We've talked about it before, but now we're doing something about it. We started, and then we had to fix the COVID situation, and that's what we did. But now we're doing it. We're doing it from the beginning. Howard will be largely in charge. We'll be working on it together. Howard's terrific. He's done a fantastic job, and he's really helped us a lot with transition. I think we have fantastic people coming in. So all of these policies will help us rapidly defeat inflation, create millions of new jobs, and put money in the pockets of the hardworking families of our country, pay off debt. We're going to be paying off a tremendous amount of debt. We're $36 trillion. You don't want to be there. And we're going to be using a lot of the money that we make. We're going to be opening up a lot of businesses that are going to be pouring in because of our tax policy. And we're going to use the money that we made to pay off debt and to reduce taxes. We're going to further reduce taxes. If you remember when we reduced them last time, that brought a tremendous amount. We brought it down to 21%, and that was the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And nobody ever thought this would happen, but this is what's supposed to happen. We actually ended up taking in more revenue at 21 than we did at 40%, which was pretty amazing. But this will be the most exciting and successful period of reform and renewal in all of American history, maybe of global history. The golden age of America, I call it. It's begun. So it's the golden age of America, and that's what it's going to be. And we hope we don't have any intervening problems, because things happen. Like out of nowhere came the China virus. Out of nowhere came other things we don't want to have. You know, when I left, we had no wars, we had no problems. The Middle East was good. We did the Abraham Accords.
Did you know that your favorite productivity solutions are free for eligible nonprofits? Microsoft 365 grants help power your nonprofit with access to Teams, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, and more. Plus simple device management and best-in-class security to connect people and information. With Microsoft 365, improve cybersecurity, reduce costs, and empower work from anywhere. Get started at Microsoft.com/nonprofits.
We did things that nobody thought were even possible. But think of it, 4 years ago, we had no wars. You didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. They wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about it. When they saw what happened in Afghanistan, I think they gave them an idea. But they wouldn't have done it. They would have never gone. President Putin would have never gone in. And now you look at all those people are dead. All those cities are destroyed. You know, it's nice to say they want their land back, but the cities are largely destroyed. They've left Kiev because probably maybe they want to use it or occupy it, but they haven't done it. They've done a lot of damage, but relatively compared to the other cities, very little. But many of those cities are gone. Those beautiful towers, those beautiful buildings that they had are now laying on their sides, destroyed, totally destroyed. The turrets and all of the magnificent 1,000-year-old, 2,000-year-old structures that were very strong are blown to smithereens. You look at some of those cities and not one building standing. So, you know, when you say take over the country, take over what? Take over what? That's a 100-year rebuild. Take 100 years to rebuild it, and you can never have it the way it was. What a shame. It should have never happened. It would have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. Nor would Israel have happened with the attack on Israel. So we're inheriting big challenges at home and all over the world. Again, we had no wars. We had no problems. We had no inflation. We had it less than 1%. A perfect number. And then we had inflation, the likes of which I say, I don't believe the country's ever seen inflation like that. They say 38 years. I don't know. I think it's probably ever. But we're going to take care of all of it. We're going to get the prices down by energy. The energy is going to come in. We have more energy than anybody else. We're going to use it. We don't have to buy energy from Venezuela when we have 50 times more than they do. It's just insane what we're doing. So we will not rest until America is richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before. And we have a big head start. Last time we didn't. And last time we didn't know the people. We didn't know a lot of things. But by the time we got it up and going, it was incredible. Again, we built the greatest economy in history for that period of time. And we'll do it again. I believe substantially more so. Because we understand, number one, the people of Washington. I know them. I didn't know any of them virtually. I relied on other people for recommendations. Some were very good recommendations. We had some great people. Bob Lighthizer, I thought, was great. We had a lot of great people. And but we had some people that I wouldn't have used in retrospect, and now I know them better than anybody, better than they know themselves. So once again, I'd like to thank Masa for what he's done with that investment, which will end up being $200 billion, I believe. But I just want to thank him. He's just an outstanding man. When you have that kind of brain power wanting to invest in this country, and that's money that he can't invest elsewhere. So that's a big investment, but makes me feel very good. Makes me feel that we're absolutely on the right track. So thank you to Masa, and we'll take a couple of questions. Yeah, please. Jeff? Yeah. And have you spoken to President Putin since your election? Well, I'm not going to comment on the Putin question, but I will comment on Bibi. We had a very good talk. We discussed what is going to happen, and I'll be very available on January 20th, and we'll see. As you know, I gave warning that if these hostages aren't back home by that date, all hell's going to break out. And very strong. But we generally just discussed, I asked him, where are things? Mike Waltz they're doing a great job, by the way. Everybody is very happy. I think he's doing a fantastic job. But he was very much involved in the call. But it was a recap call more than anything else.
President Trump, do you plan to stop the ban on TikTok next month?
Who?
How do you plan to stop the ban on TikTok next month?
We'll take a look at TikTok. You know, I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points. And there are those that say that TikTok had something to do with that. Now, Joe Rogan did, and some of the other people that were recommended by my son Barron, he knew names. I said, who is that? Tell me, who's that? Dad, you gotta be kidding. I can't believe you don't know. And I did those interviews, and it was actually sort of cute. Do you want to know the truth? But we did them. And that had an impact, but TikTok had an impact, and so we're taking a look at it. But you know, we won youth. Republicans are always 30 points down in youth. I don't know why, but we ended up finishing. There was one poll that showed us down about 30. We were 35 or 36 points up with young people. So I have a little bit of a warm spot in my heart, I'll be honest. Yes,
President, are you entertaining the idea of preemptive strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities?
Against who?
Against Iran's nuclear
Well, I
facilities.
can't tell you that. I mean, it's a wonderful question, but how can am I going to do preemptive strikes? Why would I say that? Can you imagine if I said yes or no? You'd say, that was strange that he answered that way. Am I going to do preemptive strikes on Iran? Is that a serious question? How could I answer a question like that? Say it?
Would you be in support of Israeli strikes on Iran's?
How could I tell you a thing like that now? It's just so, you don't talk about that before something may or may not happen. You know, just I don't want to insult you. I just think it's just not something that I would ever answer having to do with there or any other place in the world.
President Trump. Time magazine interview. Can I ask, just clearly, do you believe there's a connection between vaccines and autism? Do you believe there's a link?
Well, I don't look. Right now, you have some very brilliant people looking at it. I had dinner the other night with the head of Pfizer, the head of Eli Lilly, and RFK, as you know, and Oz. And we had, and other people within the administration that are involved in the medical. And we're looking to find out, you know, if you look at autism, so 30 years ago we had, I've heard numbers of like 1 in 200,000, 1 in 100,000. And now I'm hearing numbers of 1 in 100. So something's wrong. There's something wrong. And we're going to find out about it.
What about the president?
Can I follow up on Robert Kennedy? He's on the Hill today. He's meeting with senators. What do you say to people who are worried that his views on vaccines will translate into policies that will make their kids less safe?
No, I think he's going to be much less radical than you would think. I think he's got a very open mind, or I wouldn't have put him there. He's going to be very much less radical. But there are problems. I mean, we don't do as well as a lot of other nations, and those nations